Hello, dear wanderer. My name is Elwin, and I am so glad you have found your way back to our realm. The world beyond has been loud and far too hurried. But here, the night keeps a gentler pace. You may leave your worries at the door. They need not follow you in. For now, there is only this quiet and the story unfolding within it. Before we begin, I would love to know, where in the waking world are you listening from tonight? You can leave it in the comments below. A city, a country, or even just a quiet place you call your own. I always find it comforting to see how far this realm reaches and how many paths lead back here. So come in and settle. Tonight, I will tell you a story about a place where lost things do not disappear, but simply wait. The air inside the bureau of paired belongings held the scent of cedar shavings, sun-warmed wool, and the faint metallic sweetness of old keys. It was a quiet sanctuary, tucked into the soft space between two tall buildings, like a bookmark forgotten between the pages of a well-loved book. Here, the ticking of 1,000 pocket watches created a slow, rhythmic heartbeat, a steady pulse that whispered a single truth. Nothing is ever truly gone, only waiting to be found. Barnaby was a linker. He was a man of soft edges and steady hands, possessing the kind of patience that comes from years spent untangling silk ribbons and coaxing bent things gently back into shape. His movements carried no urgency, only purpose. His desk was a landscape of lonely treasures, a porcelain earring resting in a shallow dish, a weathered leather glove folded as though it still remembered the hand it once held, and a brass key that had long ago forgotten its door. To anyone else, these were fragments. To Barnaby, they were unfinished. He turned a small pearl earring between his fingers, watching how it caught the lamplight and held it there. Somewhere, its twin existed. Perhaps beneath a park bench, or tucked into the lining of a coat, or resting quietly at the bottom of a drawer that had not been opened in years. He made a careful note on a slip of parchment and returned the earring to its velvet-lined tray. The bureau was never truly still. Drawers settled softly. Labels adjusted themselves when needed. A faint hum passed between objects that belonged together, even when separated by distance, like something remembering where it ought to be. Barnaby listened to it the way one listens to rain. The bell above the heavy oak door rang. It was not a sharp sound, but a low, resonant tone that lingered in the air, like the last note of a song. It carried with it a brief breath of the outside world. Cool air, distant footsteps, the restless rhythm of a city that had not yet learned how to pause. A young woman stepped inside. She paused just beyond the threshold, as though uncertain whether she had arrived at the right place. The outside world clung to her still, in the tightness of her shoulders, the way her hands held fast to her back, and the faint quickness of her breath. But the bureau had a way of softening such things. Gradually, almost without her noticing, the sharpness of her movements eased, as the room did not quiet her so much as receive her, drawing the noise out of her until something gentler remained. She moved slowly along the shelves, her gaze passing over the rows of small wooden cubbies. Each one held an object wrapped carefully in tissue paper, labeled with the date it had wandered, the place it had last been remembered. Her fingers hovered near one of the compartments, but not quite touching.
"I've lost a locket."
Her voice was soft, as though speaking too loudly might scatter what little certainty she had left.
"My grandmother's. It's the only photograph I have of her."
She drew a breath, steadier now.
"I'm to be married in 3 days. It was meant to be my something old."
Her gaze lowered slightly.
"Without it, something feels unfinished."
Barnaby regarded her over his spectacles. He did not rush to respond. There was a certain weight to words in the bureau, and it was best not to spend them too quickly. He rose and gestured gently to the velvet-backed chair across from his desk. Sit. She did. This time, she settled more fully into the chair, as though the act of speaking had loosened something within her. Barnaby crossed to a nearby cabinet and opened it, revealing rows of carefully arranged instruments, each one shaped by a different kind of search. He selected one with quiet certainty. The things we love sometimes wander, not out of disloyalty, but because the world is full of movement. He held the object lightly in his palm. But they rarely go far without leaving something behind. Tell me, where did you last feel its weight?
"The subway. Platform 4.
Her fingers tightened slightly in her lap as the memory returned.
It was crowded, everyone moving at once. I reached for it just to be sure, and the chain was empty." I stayed. I searched everything. But people just kept moving.
Barnaby nodded once. He opened his hand. Resting in his palm was a small, delicate instrument. The compass of lost Mittens. It was fashioned from sea glass and reclaimed silver, its surface worn smooth with use. The needle within drifted gently, never settling for long, as though listening for something just beyond hearing. Clara leaned forward slightly, drawn now by quiet curiosity rather than urgency. It does not point north. The needle turned once, slowly. It points toward what belongs together.
But the locket, it doesn't have a pair.
Everything has a pair, not always in form. Sometimes in memory. The room seemed to grow still around them. Barnaby reached for his coat and hat, moving with the same steady care he brought to everything. Do not worry. He paused at the door. It knows where it belongs. It is simply waiting. The door opened, and the sound of the city returned for a moment, before gently closing again. The city did not notice when Barnaby left it. It rarely noticed such things. The subway station carried on in its usual rhythm. Footsteps overlapping, voices rising and dissolving into the echo of tiled walls. The long metallic sighs of train arriving and departing without pause. Barnaby moved through it quietly. He did not push against the current of people, nor did he follow it. He simply stepped between it, as though there were small spaces in the rush that only he could see. The compass of lost Mittens rested in his palm. Its needle drifted, slow and thoughtful, then turned just slightly toward a row of concrete pillars where the light did not quite reach. Barnaby followed. There was a door there. It was easily missed. A narrow maintenance door, its paint worn thin, its edges softened by years of being overlooked. A faint chalk marking rested just above the handle. Simple, almost careless. To most, it meant nothing. To Barnaby, it was an invitation. He paused only briefly before opening it. The sound of the station fell away behind him. Not abruptly, but as though it had been folded carefully and set aside. Barnaby stepped through. The hidden city of lost things did not reveal itself all at once. It unfolded. At first, there was only a narrowing corridor, dimly lit, the air shifting from the scent of iron and dust to something softer. Lavender, paper, the quiet dryness of time. Then gradually, the space opened. Light gathered, not bright, not sharp, but golden, like the last hour of afternoon that never quite fades. It settled over everything evenly, without casting harsh shadows, as though the city had chosen to remember only its gentler edges. Barnaby stepped forward. The ground beneath his feet was not stone. It was buttons. Thousands, no, millions of them, pressed together and smoothed by time into a seamless mosaic. Mother of pearl, bone, wood, glass, each one different, each one worn just enough to lose its sharpness. They shifted softly underfoot, but never unsettled. They held. Street lamps lined the narrow paths, their stems shaped from silver candelabras that had slipped from banquet tables long ago. Their light was steady and warm, untouched by flicker. Between them stood shelves, not orderly ones like in the bureau, but layered structures, leaning, winding, growing into one another. They held objects in quiet abundance. Single gloves draped like resting birds, books missing their final pages, umbrellas that no longer closed, letters tied but never sent. Nothing here felt abandoned, only paused. Figures moved through the city, not quite people, not quite shadows. They were made of suggestions, edges that did not fully settle, forms shaped by memory rather than matter. They drifted slowly, tending to the objects around them with a kind of quiet attentiveness. They almost sought, things remembered just enough to linger. Barnaby inclined his head slightly as one passed him. It paused, as though recognizing something in him. Not his face, but his purpose. And then continued on, carrying a length of ribbon that trailed behind, like a thought not yet finished. The compass stirred. Its needle, which had moved with gentle certainty before, now hesitated. It turned once, then again, then stilled. Barnaby watched it carefully. This happened sometimes, in places where too many things belong to too many others. the sense of direction became crowded. He closed his eyes for a moment, not searching, but listening. There was a rhythm to the city, not the ticking of clocks like the bureau, but something slower, a kind of gathering and settling, a sense of things waiting, not impatiently, but with quiet expectation. Barnaby adjusted his grip on the compass. When he opened his eyes, the needle had steadied. It pointed, not forward, not upward, but slightly off to the side. He followed. The path narrowed as he walked, bending between shelves that leaned closer together, their contents brushing softly against his coat as he passed. A low table stood ahead. On it rested a collection of watches, not ticking, not moving. Their hands were fixed at different moments, some just before, some just after, but none aligned. Barnaby slowed. This was a place where time gathered when it had been set aside. A watch near the edge caught his attention. Its glass was cracked, but carefully mended, the fracture held together by a thin seam of gold. He reached toward it and then paused. The compass shifted again. Not toward the watch, but past it. Barnaby withdrew his hand. Some things were not his to return. Further along, he came upon a small figure seated at the base of a lamppost. It appeared to be mending something. As he drew closer, he saw that it was stitching together a pair of socks, each one slightly different in color, but carefully aligned. The figure looked up. Barnaby inclined his head. "You found a near match." The figure tilted its head, as though considering the phrase. "Near is often enough." It returned to its work, threading the needle with quiet precision. Barnaby watched for a moment, and then moved on. The path began to incline, gradually at first, and then more noticeably. The shelves thinned, giving way to open space. And there, rising from the center of the city, was the great accumulation. It was not a structure in the usual sense. It was a gathering, a vast sloping rise of objects layered upon one another. Trinkets, fragments, pieces of lives stacked and settled into a form that reached toward the softly glowing ceiling above. things shimmered there, not because they were polished, but because they were remembered. At its peak, something moved. A figure, watching, waiting. The compass grew warm in Barnaby's hand. The needle no longer wavered. It pointed directly upward. Barnaby adjusted his coat and began to climb. The climb was not difficult, but it was deliberate. Each step Barnaby took upon the great accumulation shifted slightly beneath him. Not unstable, but responsive, as though the objects themselves were aware of his presence. A brooch turned beneath his shoe. A chain slipped softly into place. A glass marble rolled, then stilled. Nothing fell. Nothing resisted. The mountain did not reject him, but neither did it hurry him forward. As he climbed, the city below softened. The narrow paths, the leaning shelves, the drifting figures of the almost sought. They receded into a gentle blur of golden shadow, as though he was stepping out of one layer of the world and into another. The air grew still, not empty, just attentive. Barnaby felt it then, the subtle shift. This was no longer a place of wandering things. This was a place of keeping. At the summit, the objects changed. They were no longer loosely gathered. They were arranged, deliberately, carefully. A ring placed beside a compass, a folded letter beneath a shard of mirror, a child's shoe resting atop a stack of old maps. Nothing here had been left. Everything had been chosen. And at the center of it all, he sat. The Magpie King did not look up immediately. He was occupied. A collection of glass marbles lay before him, scattered across a velvet cloth. With long, slender fingers, he turned them one by one, arranging them not by size or color, but by something less visible, something that shifted just slightly as each piece found its place. Only when the last marble settled did he lift his gaze. Alinka. His voice was soft, but it carried. Not loud, not commanding, simply certain, as though the space itself had chosen to listen when he spoke. His eyes rested on Barnaby, not sharply, not suspiciously, but with a kind of bright, patient interest. "You come seeking something that has not forgotten its name." Barnaby inclined his head in greeting. "A locket." The king's expression shifted just slightly. Recognition. Ah, the grandmother's. He rose, not fully, but enough to shift his weight forward, the many layers of his cloak falling into place around him. It was made of silk scarves, each one different, colors that did not quite match, patterns that did not quite align, and yet, together, they formed something whole. His crown, a simple ring of silver thimbles, caught the golden light. "It has been here only a short while, still warm with memory." Barnaby said nothing. He did not reach. He knew better than that. Nothing at the summit was taken lightly. "You know the way of this place." Barnaby nodded once. "Then you know nothing leaves without being understood." The king turned, reaching behind him. From within the folds of his cloak, he withdrew something small. A mitten. Blue wool, child-sized, worn at the fingertips, as though it had once been used often, then suddenly, not at all. He placed it carefully upon the velvet cloth. "Tell me, Linka." The air seemed to settle further, as though even the distant edges of the city had paused to listen. "Why is the lost mitten more precious than the one still kept in the drawer?" Barnaby looked at the mitten. He did not answer immediately. He had learned, over many years, that answers given too quickly often belong to the questioner, not the question. And so, he waited. He thought of the bureau, of the quiet rows of cubbies, of the labels written in careful script, dates, places, small notes of circumstance. He thought of the people who came through the door, how they held what remained, how they spoke of what was missing, not always with grief, sometimes with something softer, something unfinished. He thought of a single glove, folded carefully into a pocket, of an earring kept in a box long after its pair had been lost, of the way absence did not erase value, but reshaped it. He let the thought settle, and then he spoke. The one in the drawer remembers what it was. His gaze remained on the mitten. But the one lost still has somewhere to go. The words were simple. He did not dress them further. He did not need to. The Magpie King watched him. For a moment, nothing changed. Then, very slowly, the king smiled. Yes. He reached into his cloak once more. This time, what he brought forth was unmistakable. A locket, gold, worn smooth with years of handling. The chain slightly tangled, as though it had been folded in haste. Even in the soft light, it held something of its own, a quiet warmth, like a memory that had not faded. He held it out. It was not hiding, only waiting to be asked the right question. Barnaby accepted the locket carefully. He did not open it. He did not need to. Some things were not meant to be witnessed twice. The compass in his pocket stilled. Its work, for now, was done. Barnaby did not linger at the summit. There was no need. The Magpie King had already turned back to his quiet arrangements. The marbles shifting once more beneath his careful hands, as though the moment of exchange had simply folded itself into the many others that had come before it. The mountain beneath Barnaby's feet seemed gentler now. Or perhaps it was simply that his purpose had settled. Each step downward felt lighter, though no less deliberate. The objects beneath him shifted softly, returning to stillness as he passed. Nothing followed, nothing called him back. The city did not hold what had already been understood. As he descended, the hidden city opened around him once more. The warm amber light remained unchanged. The paths, the shelves, the drifting figures of the almost sort. They continued in their quiet tending, untouched by the exchange that had just taken place. A ribbon was being wound around a spool. A book was being closed with gentle care. A pair of mismatched buttons rested side by side, as though considering one another. Everything here moved with the same patient rhythm. Waiting did not mean stillness. It meant readiness. As Barnaby passed the lamppost once more, the small figure with the needle and thread remained at its work. The socks were nearly finished now. Not identical, but aligned. The figure looked up as he approached.
You found what was needed.
It was waiting. The figure gave a small, satisfied nod and returned to its stitching, the thread catching the light briefly before settling into place. Barnaby continued on. The compass rested quietly now in his pocket, its needle no longer searching. The path it had revealed remained, though less visible, like a memory that no longer needed to be revisited in order to be understood. The narrow corridor appeared ahead. The light shifted, golden, soft, steady, to dim, cool, and familiar. Barnaby stepped through. The sound of the subway returned all at once. Footsteps, voices, the distant rush of a train pulling into the station. The world resumed its motion without pause, as though it had never been interrupted. Barnaby adjusted his coat. The locket rested in his pocket, a small, steady weight against his chest. There were those who believed lost things vanished, that they slipped beyond reach, scattered into the noise of the world. But Barnaby had never found that to be true. Things did not disappear. They simply settled elsewhere, waiting for the moment they were needed again. By the time he returned to the bureau, the light outside had begun to soften. Evening had taken hold gently, turning the windows to amber and gold. The bell rang once more as he entered. Clara was still there. She sat in the same velvet back chair, though something in her posture had changed. The sharpness of her worry had dulled into something quieter. Fatigue, perhaps, or the slow acceptance of waiting. She looked up as the door closed. Not expectant, but present. Barnaby crossed the room without haste. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he moved his desk and placed a small velvet box upon its surface. Only then did he look at her. The trail was not lost. His hand rested lightly beside the box. It was simply elsewhere. Clara did not move at first. Then, slowly, she reached forward. Her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of something returning. She opened the box. The locket lay inside. Its chain, once tangled, now rested in a gentle curve. The gold had been warmed, not by light, but by time, as though it had been held carefully before being returned. Clara lifted it, and for a moment she did not open it. She simply held it in her palm, her thumb tracing the edge as though reacquainting herself with its presence. Then she pressed it open. Inside, the photograph remained, faded but steady. The image of a woman with kind eyes, her expression caught somewhere between laughter and stillness. Time had softened the details, but not the feeling.
She would have liked this.
Her voice was quiet, but it did not break.
To be here, like this.
She closed the locket gently, holding it for a moment longer before fastening it around her neck. The chain settled into place, as though it had never left. Something shifted then, not in the room, not in the objects around them, but in her. The searching, so present when she had arrived, was gone. In its place was something quieter. Not relief, not exactly, but completion.
Thank you.
It belongs with you. She nodded once. There was nothing more to say. She rose from the chair, her movements unhurried now, and made her way to the door. The bell rang as she stepped back into the world. Barnaby watched from the window. Outside, the city moved as it always had, unaware of what had been restored within. Clara disappeared into the current of people, but she no longer moved with it. She moved within it. Barnaby returned to his desk. The ticking of the clocks resumed its quiet rhythm, filling the room with a steady, familiar cadence. He picked up the pearl earring once more, turning it gently between his fingers. Somewhere, its pair was waiting. Not lost, not gone, simply not yet returned. In the bureau of paired belongings, nothing was ever truly forgotten, only set aside, only waiting, until the moment came when it could be held again. And perhaps there are things in your own life that feel a little unfinished. Not lost, not gone, just waiting. Waiting for a quieter moment. Waiting for your hands to return to them. Not everything needs to be found all at once. Some things come back to us gently when we are ready to notice them again. And if tonight's story stayed with you, even for a little while, you are always welcome to leave a small trace of yourself here. A word, a place, a thought you've been carrying. I read them quietly, and I like to imagine each one finding its place among the others. Somewhere, in a quiet place just beyond the edge of things, there are still small stories waiting, not asking to be followed, not asking to be solved, only waiting, the way lost things do. And when the world finds you again, as it always will, may it feel just a little softer in your hands. Good night, my dear wanderer. Until we meet again in the quiet.